Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So glad you could join us on this recording for previews of problems that we haven't learned yet, but this is a great opportunity to get a preview of them. Anytime you need to pause, please make sure you do that, and we'll go through about 5 questions that I think that you could have a little guidance on. Number 4 is the first one. I think you could have done this without my help. But there's one thing that I'd like you to recognize on number 4. If you notice on choices 2 and 3, there's a dotted line, and on yours it did not copy. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to draw in that dotted line. That's the biggest thing. On your copy it was missing. I really don't know what happened. In order to do these, we're actually doing systems of inequalities when we get back from February break. But if we take a look at these 2 inequalities, we have to go through and look at each one individually. You should recognize right away that choice 2 or 4 should be one of the answers, not choice 1 or 3, because one of them needs to be dotted because of the greater than inequality. After that, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. We know that it can't be 1 or 3, so you could pick any point on this graph where it's the 2 crosses, the 2 intersections show up. This is called a solution set, and this is called a solution set. So if you pick any point in these solutions, this point I picked is 3, 2, and in this particular case, how about I pick 0, 0, just because that's the easiest. If you substitute in to your inequalities, you can determine which one is the answer. So for example, y plus 2 is greater than, that should say y plus x. Y plus x is greater than 2, and I picked the point 3, 2, so I'm going to go 2 plus 3 is greater than 2. That's true. If I pick the point 3, 2, and I use the other equation, and I substitute in, 2 is less than or equal to 3 times 3 minus 2. 2 is less than or equal to 7. That's also true. So choice 2 has to be the answer. If you substituted in 0, 0, you would see in the first equation right away that 0 is not greater than 2. Take a second, make sure you have all these notes, pause the video if you need to, and the next question we're going to do together is number 8. Number 8 is a factoring problem. You do not know how to do this yet, but I do want to do the correct mathematical version, and then I want to show you how your graphing calculator could help you. In order to do this problem, the correct mathematical process is called complete the square. We're going to do this in a few weeks, so I just want you to have these notes written down. Completing the square means that you take something and you factor it, which you don't know how to do yet. Here's the preview. Completing the square means that first you need to get all your x's on one side and all your numbers on the other side of the equal sign. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to add 12 to both sides. I'm going to leave a space because completing the square means that you have to add a square here. Now when you add a square to one side, you also have to add a square to the other side. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill in this square with a number. And the way that we do that is we take that middle term, -6, we divide it by 2, and we square it. This is the same process every single time. So we take this middle term, -6, we divide it by 2. -6 divided by 2 is -3. And when you square -3, -3 times -3 is +9. We've just completed the square. Because we put a 9 in the box on the left, we have to put a 9 in the box on the right. Then what we do is we factor this. And again, we have not done factoring yet, but what happens is we have to create 2 parentheses. We're going to undo distribution. We need 2 numbers that multiply to 9 but add to 6. Those numbers are 3 and 3. And to put x minus 3 in both equations, or both parentheses. Again, this is something totally new. I want you to have the preview. I do not expect you to understand this at this moment in time. When we have two groups that are exactly the same, this is called a perfect square. Complete the square. So on this, the left-hand side of the equal sign, we have x minus 3, and that group is squared, and 12 plus 9 is 21. Therefore, the equation x squared minus 6x minus 12 equals 0 has the same value as the quantity x minus 3 squared equals 21. So it is choice 2. Please pause the video and make sure you have all these notes. It is a preview. And then I'd like you to get out your calculator to check something out. So the original equation that we started with was x squared minus 6x plus 12, I believe. Sorry for my delay here. Minus 12. Oh my goodness, minus 12. Okay, so when we graph this, we should see that we have a parabola. The parabola looks fairly large. If we get a table, we can kind of compare some points. So right here, if we're looking at this column, we can compare some y values and some x values. What I'd like to do is I'd like to leave or get rid of the table for a moment. So I'm going to hit Control T, and I want to hit Tab, and I want to put in a second equation. Oh my goodness, my computer's going crazy. The second equation that we're going to put in is the answer that we found, which is x minus 3, close the parenthesis, and it's quantity squared, so I'm going to put an exponent of 2. And then what I want to do is we had started out with x minus 3 quantity squared equals 21. Well, what I want to do is I want to bring that 21 over to the other side so that I have 0, because then I can graph that. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. So now I'm going to go minus 21. And we're going to graph that. And we notice that it ends up right on the same exact graph. And if you hit Control T, what you will recognize is that the y values and the x values are the same. So those two graphs are equal. So you could have graphed that problem and also come up with the same answer. The next question is number 10. Number 10 is also a factoring problem. We know already that the roots are the x-intercepts, or the solutions, or the roots, or the zeros. And so what I want to do is I want to graph that. So get your graphing calculator out, and we're going to plug in x squared plus 4x minus 16. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the roots to that. Remember, in finding the roots to this, your calculator does it for you. If you hit Menu, Analyze the graph, and you want to find the zeros. Now, if you look on your particular paper, you have this dotted line. You want to make sure the dotted line is on the lower dot and on the upper dot. And so, therefore, this graph is negative 6.47. So I know that one of the roots is negative 6.47. If you look at your choices are not in decimal form. So what you want to do is in your calculator, this plus or minus means that you have 2 plus 2 radical 5 and 2 minus 2 radical 5. And so you want to figure out if any of these have a root of negative 6.47. It's straight calculator work. So I'm going to test choice 1. So choice 1, I'm going to go to my calculator page, and I'm going to test 2 plus 2 radical 5. And that does not equal negative 6.47. I'm going to try 2 minus 2 radical 5. And that also does not equal negative 6.47. So therefore, I know choice 1 is not the answer. I'd like you to pause the video, go through and see if you can find where the root has a negative 6.47, and you will find that the answer is choice 2 when you test those. The other root, if you go back to your graph, again, you can analyze the graph and find the other root by using your calculator, going to the other side, hitting the lower bound and the upper bound, so it's positive 2.47. Use your calculator to help you out. Rewatch this video if you need to. The next question is number 11, correlation coefficient, is something we'll get to probably not until about April. Correlation coefficient means how close to a perfect line something is. Now, if a line has a positive 1 slope, then it's a perfect line that looks like this. If a line has a negative 1 slope, then it's a perfect line that looks like this. Anything close to 1 tells you it's very close to a positive or negative slope and has a positive correlation of 1 or a negative correlation of 1. In this particular case, if you look at these graph points, if I draw what's called a line of best fit right through the middle of those, you can tell that there's not dots exactly on that line, so the correlation coefficient cannot be a perfect positive 1 and it cannot be a perfect negative 1. In this case, the dots are very close to the line, so the correlation coefficient is going to be very close to 1. We just have to determine if it's positive or negative. This is a negative slope, and so therefore the correlation coefficient is very close to a perfect line, but not quite, so the correlation coefficient is negative 0.93. The last question I want to review with you actually does have a calculator process. I'm going to avoid the calculator process for a moment. I want you to try to do this yourself without the calculator using spreadsheets. You can use your calculator, but you're not going to use the spreadsheets. Interquartile range is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So when you do that, I'm going to use the first semester as my example. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to put the numbers in order. So 78, and then 83, and then 88, and then 91, and 94. The interquartile range is the quartile 3 minus the quartile 1. Well, first we want to find the median. The median for this particular set is 88 because it's in the middle. Quartile 1 is between the last, or the lower numbers, excuse me. So we have quartile 1 is going to fall between 78 and 83. You cross off, you find the number that's in the middle. It's like finding the median of the lower half. In this case, if you take 83, subtract 78, you get, you find the average of those two. So 78 plus 83 divided by 2, and you can find the average of that. Did a whole bunch of calculations for you. If you look over on this side right here, semester 1, you have the median. The average is when you add them all and divide by what you have. That's right here. You have the median, you have the lower quartile, you have the upper quartile, and the interquartile range. Take a second to look at all of these. I also did semester 2 down here. You put the numbers in order right here. You find the median, you find the lower quartile, you find the upper quartile, and the interquartile range. When you take a look at your choices, you should be able to see that the mean score for semester 2 is greater than the mean score for semester 1. All the others are false. Have a great day.